I was the one who didn't want you for the longest time. Or I just at least said no. Why? I'm genuinely asking. How did it happen?
It was a message in the group meet.
It was Ben seeing it on.
It was Phil Garvin put
Oh,
it in our group.
Phil.
Because it was the $1 million cash prize. And then it was just asking ourselves if we wanted to like do it again after ABDC.
We were all at the dojo and we were like, fuck.
I was playing an arcade game at the time, and Ben comes up and he's like, yo, did you see his thing? And he shows me, and I was like, no, no. Oh, the scarring and repercussions of ABDC had not yet settled fresh, and then the Band-Aid was ripped off. More so because it's a really stressful experience. Why we decided, I think the idea of like $1 million being on the line and produced by J-Lo on like prime time, like a huge non-cable network like NBC, is enough reason for anybody to be like, okay, I should take this seriously. And for us, if we take our crew seriously, our brand seriously, and we know that there's an opportunity for literally what is not just claiming to be, but is putting up like the resources to make the biggest dance competition or show in the world, we had to admit it to ourselves, you know what I'm saying? That like, yo, if we're really a part of this dance culture and we really want to push it, progress it, be a part of it or whatever, like we got to look into it, you know, and we had to at least have a serious conversation, pull all the guys together, see how they felt. Obviously, you know, we had to just think about like what our mission, you know what I mean, is. And at the end of the day, if we're like artists or creators and ultimately we want to push out like messaging or whatever it is that we want to share with the world, like this is one of the biggest microphones and platforms that has ever been afforded to a dancer, especially a dance crew. So I think that's one of the reasons why we took it. It's not because like we're like, hey, we got to get that million. That'd be a freaking dope bonus. But other than that, there's just something bigger at play with an opportunity like that. I mean, that's my answer.
I have a question to like bounce off of just listening to you that I'm like even curious about. A lot of people don't know that there's a lot of members in Kinjaz. How was that process for you guys? Like picking your group slash, you know, how, you know, was that decision made? And
Dang.
how many members are there?
36 right now.
36.
But at the time,
Yeah.
34 at that time.
Dude, I answered the first one.
Yeah, because there's 34 members, and then there was 15 on the show?
13 on
13 on the show.
Yeah.
Right.
Man,
So that's tough. It's gotta be tough.
That's always like the heaviest, hands down, like the most heaviest Kinjaz decisions. Out of all Kinjaz decisions, those are the ones that we spend like as soon as, upon inception of that decision-making process, it's like, from then until the decision is made, we've spoken like texts throughout every single day for like weeks straight up. Phone calls, individual phone calls to the crew, like literally talking about like what is the most right thing to do and balancing what's the best thing to do. You know what I'm saying? And I think those conversations are not only super difficult, but I feel like, well, let me rewind it. I'll rewind it to even just ABDC, right? ABDC was the first time that Kinjaz competed on a television show and forced us to shrink our numbers, right?
First time we competed ever.
Yeah. Oh shit. Yeah, straight up. So even that process was bringing all the guys together. Once we picked the squad, it wasn't even final. We literally had like one-on-ones with each of the guys to like just gauge life. It wasn't even like, yo, can you do the show? It was first like, where are you at right now? And like we literally had individual talks. Sometimes we divided and conquered to like talk to guys. Sometimes we were like, we should talk to them like together. And like there were even dinners where like it was like, where do you stand or in life, first of all? Because it's not like, you know, it's not like, hey, just do the show. We're not gonna care about your life. It's just straight up like, as cliche as it sounds, it's like a real fucking brotherhood. You know what I'm saying? So like, we're literally talking to you guys, seeing if like, also feeling it out for us if like, in our opinion, like, is this something like that also makes sense like on both ends? But I guess fast forwarding that, the end of the ABDC process was a long talk with everybody, with the whole squad, and announcing it, and then literally just being like, guys, like at the end of the day, like we're open to communication. Like please talk to us about this decision. If you have any questions, and like that's kind of the best we could do, and we kind of reached out to some of the guys as well, just to like continue conversations. Fast forward to what?
Well, I think it's important to also note that not every member is like an active dancer. It's not just like dance crew, right? Like when Mike says, brother, I mean, we all know, but like for everybody else who might be interested in knowing, dude, there's dudes that don't even live in the state that like really haven't danced in a long time, but we've just all grown up together or like met through dance or we're on the same competitive teams back in college and stuff like that. So like the connection runs deep. But yeah, in terms of 36 members, that's just like the size of the family and the brotherhood. But for the most part, yeah, we had to sit down with like a lot of the more active dancers. And it came down to a lot of logistical stuff too, right? Like some dudes work full time. Some dudes are like working for the government or engineers or like, you know, working in like in tech and stuff, you know, that have like regular or just crazy jobs and stuff. So to bring that and make it make sense, like, plus like going into a show with a lot of dudes is like a lot of costumes or a lot like rehearsing with like, you know, 13 people, but then like thinking about how you might have to go against like one kid, you know what I mean, at the end, like that's just something that's like, whoa, it's a lot more work, you know what I mean, like realistically. So we had to really think about numbers to continue. My bad. Got you.
Nah, man, I mean, you pretty much hit it on the dot. I feel like that's like pretty much the great Cliff Notes version of it. But I guess for the World of Dance process, it kind of, the difference between that and ABDC was also that ABDC gave us a limit, whereas technically WAD, we could have taken the whole crew. Not to say that like everyone would have gone, like Ant's saying, like Kinjaz is 36 guys, as in if we had a barbecue or a retreat, 36 guys are gonna be there. But if we like say like, even like, hey, there's a Kinjaz job, like a dance paid opportunity in a sense, not everyone's gonna do it, straight up. Not even interested to do it, you know what I'm saying? So I think knowing that these variables were different, it changed the game. Where we're like, even though a small group would be easier, logistically, straight up, again, it was the balance of like, what's the right thing to do versus what's the best thing to do. Best thing to do on some levels, or I don't want to say best as if best is, it's just like, if you were just thinking win, you were just thinking win, then I feel like we would have gone smaller. But in terms of like what we feel like is like the right thing to do.
Yeah, that's it. The mentality, like always trying to do the most right thing, and like you never know what the answer is, and the variables always change. But we freaking think our asses off on trying to do the most right thing, and sometimes we're still wrong. But I think that's how the decision came about on who to take.
It was down to the wire, I'll say that. It was down to the last minute when we announced it to the squad. Yeah.
It also goes down to a FaceTime in Ving's car in the parking lot of the dojo.
Yeah, right over there.
yeah, like 15 feet over there, like 15 feet south. But I don't know where we go from here.
I'll take it from there.
Hey!
So this kind of ties into the question of why and how did we end up deciding to do the show, right? So specifically for Mari and I. It's funny, I think I was getting a haircut at the time, and I usually have my phone in my pocket and it's vibrating. I'm like, all right, I'm just like trying to keep it down. It's just weird because the thing is vibrating, the haircut, and the hairs are drifting off. So it looks weird, but and then it keeps going. I'm like, whoa, what the heck? So it must be important. I look, and I think it was like Ving. So I think I can call him back after. And then again, I was like, Mike, call him back after. Pat, or I don't know, it was Ant. Yeah, it's like all of them just kept blasting my phone. I was like, all right, this is something funny is going on, or like they had something to ask me. Definitely something to ask me. But anyways, fast forwarding, FaceTime with the guys, and the three of them were, you guys were in your car, and just prefaced it with a desire to push our culture and our community specifically, representing our community, and also just the fact that me personally having a long history with this guy, I mean, our history goes 17 years. And a lot of people don't know about that, that we literally started dancing together, like socks in a small room.
In my dad's like upstairs office, watching videos.
Yeah, like choreographing for school assemblies and talent shows and stuff like that. And so to have that history, and then obviously having history with these guys within our community, it just it's an easy fit. It's a natural one. It makes sense. So I get it. I get where they're coming from, and I, like everything, I always want to give thought and prayer to it, and instead of giving an answer right away. But a couple days later,
Nappy Tabs gave us a call a couple days later and asked about Keone and I coming onto the show, and explained that there was what is the uppers category, which is solos, duos, and up to 4.
Yeah. None of us knew that.
And we didn't know. We thought it was just like a team, crew, ABDC type of deal.
Yeah.
So we didn't know that category existed. And so I was not, that show was not in my radar at all. I knew that the guys had asked Keone, and I was actually a little sad. To be honest, I was actually really sad because I was sad. Well, it's okay, but I understand. But it just wasn't a thing that I ever felt interested in, ever. But
well, we had kind of been used to just being behind the scenes on these kinds of shows, like just choreographing and working with the contestants, but
yeah, and just like seeing the things that they go through, and seeing our friends before on other shows, seeing the things that they went through. It's just kind of like, oh, I don't know about that. But we started thinking about it seriously, and a lot of the points that these guys brought up, Keone was talking about, like the idea of representing our community, and that was a bigger thing. And I think the thought that really stuck with me is like, okay, well, if we're not representing our community, then who is?
Mm-hmm.
Someone's gonna take that spot. Is it gonna be someone from our community or someone else? So, yeah.
Yeah, and then
I think it's super important to kind of like talk about what we are talking about when we reference like our community, because that's such like a broad and general word. You know what I mean? Like in our context, because we come from it, it's so easy for us to be like, that's the jargon that we can associate it with. But like I know a lot of people maybe watching will like tweet about it or hashtag it, with the caps locks, unity in community. Just to quickly touch on that, like a more specific is kind of like the West Coast urban dance community, right? Where like a bunch of people everyone here was part of like a different team that had like 30 plus members, and would compete against each other in like different circuits and whatnot, like a decade ago or a generation ago. So like when we talk about our community, that's a very specific one. It can't just be dance community. It's like that urban, choreographical dance community from the West Coast that we come from. That's our specifics.
Yeah. Our community is like a lot of theater type competitions where everyone puts together sets and 5 minutes on stage, 3 months of preparation for those 5 months with 30, 40, sometimes 50 people. But yeah, that's where we all come from, and it's where a lot of dancers that people know come from. And there's a reason why we all, to the masses, maybe look similar in our styles. That's not because of one person or one group of people. It's because of the culmination of our community and our culture, and that's natural when you're inspired by people and you're surrounded by great people. That you just it's yeah, it just passes on to each other naturally. And, I mean, we all train together, you know, we all take each other's classes when we travel. That whole culture of the international dance camps, like that happens too. So that's like probably a whole nother video to go into. It's like so hard to like put it in a nutshell, but yeah, I think maybe, go ahead, you were gonna say something.
I mean, this community that we've all been a part of, just, I don't know, people getting together and dancing for fun and competing for fun. It's been a really important thing for all of us, and just has raised so many amazing artists. And what's so cool about it is it's kind of like away from the industry. Not to say there's anything wrong, it's just like a separate thing that's happened. And, you know, there's all of these teams that have been around for a long time. There's shows, competitions that have been around for a long time. I think one's worth mentioning are Body Rock, Vibe,
Ultimate Brawl, Fusion, Prelude, The Bridge, and then World of Dance. And then World of Dance was one of them. And it was probably the most different at the time out of all of them.
The newer ones too, I would say, out of all of those named that came along like later in you know, the scheme of all of those shows. But
and it's just crazy to see, you know, it progressed to this NBC show.
Yeah.
And it's very important to acknowledge that it definitely has roots that are tied to where we all come from.
Yeah, and I just also like would love to shout out Myron Martin, who is a huge part of World of Dance, the live event, and that grew and grew, and now NBC, I think it's a separate entity, but it definitely comes from there, and I feel like it comes from, if you trickle down from our community.
Absolutely, I think it's important to note that, like, because everything's so interconnected and our community's so it's a small community, right? And I feel like, for example, World of Dance to NBC, there's a connection. There's even like a connection with John Shi of Vibrvncy to Kinjaz is a former media director of World of Dance, and he's / inventor of the front row view as you know it. You know what I'm saying? And I feel like these are the things that y'all don't know. But like this is the history that has laid the foundation for like the show that you guys are watching right now.
I mean, some of us competed on that original World of Dance and performed at it several times. Yeah, it's just a whole nother animal now. It's crazy.
Yeah.
So why did you guys want to do the show?
Damn, that was a whole. Yeah. Let's pull that back. So a couple days later, after our FaceTime, we got a phone call from Nappy Tabs, and again, Mari talked about it already, but just how them explaining that there's a division where we can compete as a duo, and that kind of changed everything in terms of like, man. My heart immediately was like, if I'm gonna do this show, if I've never done a show like this, and I'm usually kind of anti wanting to do that because I'm usually preferring to be behind the scenes, that it's like, if I'm gonna come to the forefront for the first time, I think I would want to do it with my wife if I had that opportunity. If she wants to do it, of course.
You guys.
Thanks, Nappy Tabs.
Yeah. But speaking of, Nappy Tabs also was a huge part in our wanting and our desire to do the show. And I know I can speak on that for all of us, is that if they weren't included in the process, we probably wouldn't want to be a part of it, just because they represent dance so beautifully behind the scenes, and they fight for a lot of things that people don't know about, from down to the smallest thing about like what color are our shoelaces. Like, they'll fight for those kinds of things, and because they understand that it's important for dancers to be respected in their ideas, and yeah.
Probably also because they come from our community, Culture Shock Las Vegas. Shout out to all the Culture Shocks, Culture Shock International. I'm doing it. but like they totally understand it, you know what I mean? Like from what it means to be like a dancer kind of at the bottom of the barrel, you know what I mean, and experience things purely out of just like joy, and then for them to have like worked their way up and like to experience and see everything behind, in front of the scenes and all the way around it. They have an understanding that's just really just an energy and an understanding. It's really dope to have back there, and our experience from ABDC would not have been the same without them too, so for sure, co-sign.
Yeah, it's definitely a confidence, like when you're walking around on set and knowing like, oh, Nappy Taps is fighting for us somewhere right now. Yeah. You know, and that they got our backs. But yeah, once they told us that, I mean, we spent like maybe a month or two talking about it, you know, deciding whether or not we want to do this. We actually wanted to start having a family soon. Like, I think this was in the summer of last year, around July, August, when we got this call when we were done with our summer travels. Coming back home in September and October, we wanted to start trying to have a family. And so that was a big thing, a huge thing.
Actually, that's what Keone gave me for my birthday that year, was in November. You said that I'm like let's start trying to have a baby. And then, but we had decided to do World of Dance. I remember because we were talking about contracts and stuff, and you know, I felt that I didn't want to start trying yet because having to deal with all of that and not knowing what that would entail, or if it would be really stressful, or a lot of work, and physically how that would be, and mentally how that would be. We waited.
Yeah,
we waited till after the show.
Yeah, I mean, a big thing for me was like, I don't want to like just say, oh, let's postpone having a baby because of the show. Like, if that's what you really want, then that's what we'll do. But I wanted to make sure that if we're gonna do the show, it's not also good for our team in general to be like on the show and feeling like, man, you know, we could have been doing this instead. You know what I mean? It's important that we were both committed to this 1,000%. And so,
this is so good.
You know, she was 1,000. As soon as I said I'm ready to, you know, to start having a family, it's really up to you how you want to approach this with the show. And she was like, yeah, well, I want to do this too. This could be beneficial for our family. Obviously, the potential prize money could have been really great, but aside from that, the exposure is also going to help. You know what I mean? It's not just the money.
It's a huge platform to share.
In addition to, you know, knowing these guys were going to be on the show, knowing and starting to get wind of other groups that were going to be on the show, was like, okay, this is going to be big. Yeah, and I would be super salty watching TV and being like, no, we should have done it.
Holding your baby.
Yeah. So yeah, we made that call and decided to do it.
Yep.
Yeah.